friend Jeremy.
Hello.
He's my neighbor, and he has agreed to make an Easter bread loaf for us. What are you making?
Yes, today we're going to be making a garden herb loaf for Easter, and it's going to incorporate different herbs and spices, and it's just delicious for this time of year.
How lucky are we? Let's make this!
So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our dry ingredients first. And in this bowl we've already put 1.5 cups of flour. We have 3 tablespoons of white sugar, about a tablespoon of instant dry yeast, and 1.5 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of sage, a teaspoon of thyme, and a teaspoon of dried rosemary. So we just want to make sure that everything is mixed together. Our sugars and our spices are all even throughout the entire mix here. Now in the saucepan here, we are trying to get some of our wet ingredients together. What we're trying to do is get everything nice and warm, but not too hot. We don't want to get too hot, we might kill the yeast. So what we want to do is just get this nice and warm and melt the butter. So right now in our pot, we have 3/4 cup of milk, 1/2 cup of water, and 1/4 cup of butter.
And guys, that's unsalted butter, by the way. You don't want to have more salt in here, okay?
So I just want to basically get this warm enough to melt the butter, and we'll just turn off the fire here in a second. It seems like it's warm enough now to just stir and get the rest of that butter melted the rest of the way. When you're heating the milk combination of water, milk, and butter, you want to heat it till it's about 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 48 degrees Celsius. Alright, so now what we're going to do is combine our wet ingredients and our dry ingredients. Slowly pour the milk, butter, water mixture. Alright, we'll stir this all together. And once the dry ingredients are fairly well incorporated into the wet, and we have the beginnings of our dough, then we'll throw in 1 egg. Here's our egg, going in, and then get that egg mixed in there. Alright, that's looking fantastic. So now what we're going to start doing is adding our flour, the rest of our flour, about 1/2 cup at a time. And this part you are going to kind of go by the way the dough looks and feels. As we're adding the flour, we get to a certain point where it really becomes a nice cohesive dough, and it starts to pull away from the sides, and it's not nearly as sticky. So it's a little flexible, but we're going to use total about 4 to 4.5 cups of flour by the time all is said and done. So you can see that in certain parts it's, you know, it's starting to come together, but it's still a really sticky mess. So
about at 3.5 cups total, actually, guys. But you know, this is why Jeremy is asking you to put this in half a cup at a time, because there's a bunch of things that can make this different. You know, it could be that there's more moisture in the air. It could be that your flour is absorbing more liquid. It could be all kinds of factors. So don't get hung up on the measurement. You know that you have to have that flour on the side. As long as your flour looks like this, nice and cohesive, like he said, it's a nice non-sticky dough, you're good.
So now we're going to just let it, we're going to put a cover over it, and we're going to let it rise for about 10 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to divide this loaf into 3 equal parts, as equally as we can get them, and we're going to then braid them together and then form a braided loaf at as the final step before we let it do its final rise. One of the cool things about this, and why it's a great Easter recipe, is that we can kind of use this as an analogy for the Trinity. So as we're remembering Christ's death on the cross and the resurrection on Easter Sunday, we have 3 equal parts. We're braiding them together to form one whole thing, which is a cool analogy for the Trinity. So here's a good little bread for Easter, and now we'll get to actually making it.
Great.
All right, so the tough part is kind of, because we have a round loaf, dividing into 3 equal parts. So we'll make a couple indentations first and just maybe change things a little bit here. That's about-ish, about right. So now as we're stretching these and changing these into 30-inch ropes. That's what our recipe calls for. So what we're going to do is we're going to stretch each of these 3 into equal size lengths that we will then braid. Now, as I've done this over the years, I've tried rolling, and it just kind of slips and slides around. So what I do is I grab each end and I kind of wiggle it and just start to stretch and mold it into the ropes. And you can kind of see that as we stretch it and shake it and just whatever it takes to kind of get that nice long rope that we will then braid. We're going to go ahead and cover each one as they're completed with a towel so that they don't dry out. We don't want them nice and pliable as we braid them, because otherwise they'll start to split and then it doesn't quite come together as nicely in the end. So as we complete each one, throw it under the towel, keep it nice and moist. All right, so now we come to the part where we braid. What we're going to do is we're going to overlap these 3 ends, pinch them together, and what I do is I'll just kind of mush them together like that. So it's all right. So now we'll braid. Okay, now here's the tricky part. This is where it can get a little fun, a little interesting. What we're going to do is we're actually going to tie a knot. We're going to tie a knot in the middle of this bread and then tuck the ends under. And it's just a simple knot. just get our pan. This is where it's gonna rise, and it's also where we're gonna bake it. So we just wanna get a nice, fairly even coat on there. Then take your finished braided and knotted bread and put it on the pan. Make sure that those ends that we tied into a knot, make sure they're tucked under. All right, so now that we've completed the braiding, the knotting, and putting it on the pan to rise, we're gonna let it rise in a nice warm environment, covered for the next 40 minutes, and then we'll bake it off.
Okay, our bread is ready, guys. We're gonna bake it at 375 Fahrenheit, 190 centigrade for 30 to 35 minutes in the same pan it's on, okay?
So now as the bread is baking, within the last 10 minutes, if you look in the oven and it looks like it's getting a little too brown, then you can just simply tent it with tin foil and let it cook the rest of the time. But I haven't had too many problems with that, so just kind of keep an eye on it, and you'll know when it's done. So we just took the bread out of the oven and it's looking gorgeous as we hoped it would. And so the last little step here is to take some butter, and you can just do little cubes like this, or take a stick, and then you're just gonna kind of rub it all over. And so we're basically just gonna apply butter to all the brown parts and make sure that it looks it's just changes the look, and it adds some flavor, but also it's gonna keep those areas nice and soft in the end. So this is our last finishing touch on our garden herb loaf for Easter. And that's it.
Okay, we'll let it cool down a little bit and we'll eat. Oh, look at that bread. Oh, we can't wait. It's still hot, but we cut it up anyway. Jeremy's gonna taste it for us now. And I will have this recipe on the website, waiting for you guys to come and print it if you'd like. In the meantime, eat well without going broke. And I'm gonna see you guys soon. Thank you, Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Marianne. This has been an awesome experience. I'm really glad I got to share this with you guys too. And now we're gonna just taste a little bit of the bread. The final product turned out really, really well. So I'm excited to taste some hot bread. We'll give some to Marianne here too. It's gonna be awesome. All right, here we go.
Sorry, I moved it. Here we go. Oh.
That was really good. So have a very happy Easter. Enjoy your bread.
Thank you. Oh, guys, you gotta make this.